Within Solid Edge with synchronous technology, a user can create exploded views of their components. They can also render the assembly for a more realistic view. Within the ERA environment, a user has the tools available to either manually or automatically explode an assembly. In this assembly, we already have a configuration saved of the parts exploded. We can draw flow lines between the components. We have the ability to set the angle based on a component or a face of a component within the assembly. We can also adjust the position of the parts within the exploded view. Again, I'm going to set the coordinate system based on a face in the assembly and then move along the vector. We can also modify the position of the flow lines. Using the modify command, I just simply select a flow line, pick the direction I want to move it, and drag it to a new position. When drawing flow lines, we're also given an opportunity to have Solid Edge determine how the flow line should be represented. By cycling through, we're going to be given different options for that flow line. When we like the one that we want, we simply accept it. Again, we can modify multiple flow lines at the same time by using the control selection and then dragging to a new position. Let's create another flow line between the U-bolt and the bracket. Again, I'm going to set the orientation to a face in the assembly. If you wish to jog a flow line around a component, we have an option to split that flow line, and we split it by simply clicking a point along the flow line. Then we turn that split off and we can actually drag that split section to a new position, which allows us to actually jog the flow line around a particular component. Next, we'll save this configuration with the new flow lines that we just created. The next thing we may wish to do is actually render the assembly. First thing we want to do is maximize the graphics area for the rendering, so we'll auto hide the pathfinder. It's always important to show perspective when creating rendering. Solid Edge makes this easy by just holding the Control and the Shift and scrolling the mouse wheel. We can change the perspective of our assembly. To initiate the rendering environment, we simply render the scene with the default values. Built into the rendering command are options for changing the background, foreground, lighting, and materials for the parts. There's a tab for predefined archives where the user can apply more options to the rendering. Here we're going to apply a material to multiple parts. We may also wish to add scenery. Solid Edge has many predefined sceneries built into the product. To add a scenery, we simply drag and drop it into the graphics window. To preview the results, we simply render the scene again. Here we have a black background with a very reflective base. Solid Edge automatically creates a base plane to display the reflection. Now we're going to add a reflective backplate, and this is going to be an exterior backplate, so it's going to look like it's sitting outside in a field. Again, to preview that, we just simply render the scene. Push the part out, zoom out just a little bit to make it more realistic. There you can see how it appears as though the grass is catching the shadow of that assembly. Now let's try an interior backplate as though it's sitting in a warehouse. And now you can see that the floor is catching the shadow. If we want to change the viewing angle, simply zoom in. We're going to pull it up to the upper left corner of the view and render it again, and now it appears as though it's very close sitting inside of this warehouse. Now we'll close ERA, and the next thing that we want to do is create a drawing using our exploded view. So we just create a new drawing, and within Solid Edge we have a drawing view wizard that we can use to select one of the configurations that we saved, in this case our custom exploded config that we created earlier. It's easy to set the scale for the drawing. You can get a preview of how large that's going to be on the drawing sheet. And now you can see the flow lines that we created earlier in this demonstration. The user also can create a parts list from this exploded view. Within the properties, we can add a title. We're going to call this the IronEagle roll cage. We can also control the font, the style, and the alignment. You can also control the columns and what you want displayed in the parts list. You can also control the text height of the balloons and the balloon size relative to that text height. Here we're just going to make it a little bit larger. As we click to place, you'll see the balloons are added to the exploded view, and also the parts list has been created. It's very easy to modify how that parts list looks by simply dragging the handle points to increase the size of the columns. Within the parts list, we may wish to merge columns that have like values. This is easy by just going into the properties and selecting the column that you want to modify, and just pick the option to merge the columns with like values. And of course you can determine how you want that value to be displayed within that column. When clicking apply, you can see that we get a preview of what that's going to look like. Solid Edge with synchronous technology has the ERA environment, which extends the value of your design with exploded views and applying rendering to better visualize what they may look like in real life. Next, we'll just close and save our drawing and return back to the top level assembly.